Oh, that's right. No, we don't like. Good morning, everybody. Testing, testing. Check, check. Check, 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 check. I don't know why I quit working. Check, check. Did you hear it there? How about now? Check, check. Check, check. Check, check. Yeah, I hear it. I just heard it. It's just quiet. It's quiet. Good morning, everybody. If you go ahead and find a seat, please. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. Again, thanks for coming. Please go ahead and find your seat. Thank you.
It's all the way up, so I don't know if I can give you any more.
That's fine. For the speaker, do you want to use that or this?
The Augustus, it's got Joshua's microphone.
Perfect. Got it. Again, if you could go ahead and find a seat, please. Go ahead and find a seat for me. Thank you. All right, one more time. If you could find a seat for me, we're going to start in about 60 seconds. Go ahead and find a seat. Hello, hello, hello. Good, bud?
All right, so it might be just like we'll need Mickey to talk loud with this because not everyone I think can hear. Okay. Will you tell Luke to like 20 seconds? That was good. Hey, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Coffee Break. Thanks for coming today. Yeah, woo! Let's go. If you could go ahead and find a seat if you haven't already, we're going to get started. So Coffee Break is a community building event with the intent to bring together small businesses, nonprofits, creatives, and community resources. So I like to do something now when we've started. So if you are a small business owner or professional, will you raise your hand for me? Awesome. All right, put it down. If you're a nonprofit person, will you raise your hand for me? Awesome. All right, and now if you're a creative of some kind, will you raise your hand? Awesome. And then like a resource, community advocate, politician, anything like that? Excellent. Cool. So as you can see, there's a really cool spread of people here. And the purpose of Coffee Break is to bring those together because together we're better and stronger and we're good at different things. And then we can kind of work together and do cool stuff. So if you haven't already, go get a coffee and a pastry from the back. And I'm going to turn it over to Nate to do shout outs for everyone.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And thank you all again so much for being here. So yeah, I want to start by, of course, thanking Be Caffeinated for keeping us caffeinated today. Yeah. Thank you all. Then also a big thank you to Morning Bee Bakery for making the delicious scones and muffins today. Yeah, and then we want to thank, of course, our venue, the AIM Center. This is an amazing space, and I think someone from their team wanted to come up and talk really quick, Anna. So yeah.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So welcome to the AIM Center. We're so excited to have you here today. I'm Anna Prochnovics. I'm the president and CEO here, and it's really great to have so many different people from so many walks of life in Chattanooga here. We are all about collaboration here at the AIM Center in everything that we do. So for all of you who don't really know who we are, we're really excited to have you so we can tell you. So what we do is really, we create hope, community and social change. And we do that to enrich and celebrate the lives of people living with serious mental illness. And we do that in a really unique way here in this community. Solution Mental Health. We are part of an international network of clubhouses around the world. And what we do is we work side by side with what we call members. So everyone who comes here to Clubhouse is a member. We work side by side, creating community and connection as an antidote to isolation. Because we all need purpose, right? So everyone in this community, we're all searching for purpose in our work, in our lives. And that's what we do here. And we do that in so many unique ways through employment, housing, education, financial literacy, art programming. I could go on. But you know, we hope that you will find ways to connect with us because we are looking for more and more ways for people to connect, whether that be through give backs, opportunities out in the community so that we can raise awareness, whether that's with you sharing your time and talents with us. I had so many people come up to me today and say that they're you know, able to share like dance with us, art with us, yoga with us, lots of different types of you know, creative solutions with us. We literally look for innovation every single day in everything that we do. We collaborate with lots of different community partners, and we hope that you will be part of that solution in our community because, as you know, Chris was saying, when we come together, we are so much stronger, and we know that, and we want to, you know, hope that you will be part of that solution for us because, you know, we believe part of our values is that everyone is capable of great things. and that everyone should have a sense of belonging and community. And that's what we do here at the AIM Center. So we're so glad that you're a part of this community today. So thank you for being here. We hope you connect with us on social media. We are on like Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that good stuff. And if you haven't met Micah, he's in the back of the room. Micah Adkins is my development coordinator. At the end, if you haven't met him, please connect with him if you'd love to learn more about things, how to connect with us. And also we have tours available today. So we hope that you will take advantage of that. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, AIM Center. So then I want to thank our live streamer today, which is Joshua from JamSessions Productions. Joshua, you want to come up and talk about what y'all do? Yeah. Woo!
Hey again, Joshua Allen with JamSessions Productions. Glad to see you guys. It's always good to see just a group of business, entrepreneurs, creatives, and nonprofits all in one room. Again, love to bring the action to those who are not in the room. So that's what we do and love to be here. So if you need any help, you know where to find me. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. They always do such great work. So yeah, then we also want to thank our artist for today, Augustus Geiger. Augustus, you want to come up here and talk?
Good morning. I'm Augustus Geiger. I've been painting for 10 years, and I actually go by Gus and things like that. But I've been painting for 10 years. I'm an abstract artist, and I love trees, I love colors, and I love flowers. But what brings me peace is doing art. My mother got me into art when I was very, very young, and I stopped because I didn't want people to see it. I didn't want to show it to the world. And now that I'm 35, started back when I was 25, this is my way to show people that you can do whatever you want. Put your mind to it and just keep going. And every day I just paint after work and whatever, because we all have to work and things like that. And I'm not full-time yet. But yeah, this is wonderful to be here, talking about my art, painting in front of y'all and things like that. Thank y'all so much.
Incredible. Thank you, Augustus. And we also want to say thank you to our amazing musician, Luke Simmons. Luke, do you want to talk? Okay, yeah. You're good? Okay. Yeah. Heck yeah.
How's it going, y'all? My name is Luke, and thank you for putting me on the spot, because I actually try to, need to get my head in the game if this is what I want to do for, for the future. I play music. I've been doing it for years, and I absolutely love it. I love sharing it, and so I thank Coffee Break, High Think Media to, helping me out with doing exactly that, you know what I mean? So I really love this city and the people in it. They've really helped me come out of a tough spot and put me in a spot where I can to share my art. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Amazing. So then after that, we want to thank our nonprofit partner today, which is Hope's Haven. Abby, you want to share about what y'all do?
Hope's Haven is an overnight summer camp for kids with special needs, and we do day events throughout the year as well to keep a relationship going between our volunteers and campers and our staff. And yes, we have a one-on-one ratio of volunteers to campers, so it's like a peer mentorship program. They get paired with a buddy, and a lot of times we try and keep the kid and volunteer together throughout the time they're with Hope's Haven. So it's really like building relationships within the community of people of all abilities. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Abby. And before I hand the mic to Dylan to introduce our speaker, I want to do a big shout out to Bella from Belrose Creative for doing our social media today. Thank you, Bella. Talk to them if you need help with your social media. All right, and Dylan, bring us in.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Thanks, everyone, for coming. This is the 5th coffee break we've had, and it's great to see a lot of friends that we've made through the ones we've already had, and then also some new faces. So it's always fun to see you guys on the second Friday of every month. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Mr. Mickey Cloud, who is the executive director at the Sasha Group. He's a really great guy, super smart about marketing. I think he knows everything there is to know. So I'll hand the mic to him, and I hope you guys enjoy. I know you will.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start. Thanks, everyone. Super impressed by what Dylan and the team have built here in terms of creating this series and this event, and something I'll be back to as well. So appreciate you guys inviting me in to speak. My name is Mickey. As Dylan said, I'm the executive director at the Sasha Group, which is a VaynerX company. I've been in Chattanooga for 9+ years now, or almost 9 years now, and we're a marketing advertising agency with a headquarters in New York, and we've got an outpost here in Chattanooga. And so wanted to give a little bit of the background on that, and then also just go into Q&A if there's opportunity as well. So I'll start by asking how many people by raise of hand have heard of Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V? Okay, so we got like 50 to 60%. So if you'll let me, for the 40 or so percent that don't know Gary, let me do a little bit of background on him, because he's the guy, you can't totally tell with the lighting here. He's our founder and chairman and CEO, and he's the driving force behind, well, a lot of things in my career, but in general, a lot of things in the organization. And so Gary is a serial entrepreneur. He was born in the former USSR and came to the US when he was 3. As he was actually traded to the United States. There was a deal that was happening back then where they were like getting Jews out of Eastern Europe and bringing them to America. And so he was part of that. Moved to Queens in New York, lived in a studio apartment with like 8 family members, very kind of early immigrant story. His dad worked kind of got a job at a liquor store as the ice person at the liquor store, and moved up that to one day managing that liquor store, and then one day owning that liquor store. And so very much kind of the first generation immigrant story, success of, hard work. He was working 15 hours a day. Gary said as a kid he never really saw him. But at age 14, Gary was dragged into the liquor store to start working there. He was the kind of kid that early on had business in him, right? So when it snowed, Gary would go and round up his friends, and they would shovel people's driveways and ask for $2 or whatever. He was the kind of kid that in middle school was buying and selling baseball cards in the 80s and early 90s, and paying way more attention to that than actual school as he was growing up. So he came into the liquor store and realized that people collect wine the same way that people collect baseball cards. And so that kind of got him interested. It was like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity I can dive into. As he went through college, he started taking over kind of day-to-day operations of the liquor store. One of the first things he did was rebrand it from Shoppers Discount Liquors to Wine Library. And in 1997, launched WineLibrary.com, which was one of the first 3 websites in the US that sold wine on the internet. Back in 1997, there's enough of us in this room that remember 1997. There was debates on whether you put your credit card information into the internet, whether you would actually, and he was there. I mean, you can think about local liquor stores here. Many of them don't sell direct to consumer, right? They maybe have some delivery options or things like that, but he was doing this in 1997. It was a $3 million gross revenue business as a single store location, and he grew that from a $3 million revenue business to about a $65 million revenue business, of course, about 6 years, really off the back of early digital marketing and early e-commerce. So he was a service that, rivaled his competitors who were sending out magazines, right? And so the fact that he had people email, they could take orders and things like that. He had, 92% click rates when email first opened. When banner ad retargeting started in the late 90s, he was doing and came out. In the year 2000, Google launched AdWords. He was buying the word wine for 10 cents a click. For context now, the word wine on Google, every time if you put that in and if you search wine, different wine categories, the average is about $16 a click. So he was getting that for 5 and 10 cents a click back in the early days. And then YouTube came out. And YouTube was a little bit different, but he was one of the first 100 or 500 or so original content creators on YouTube. If you remember YouTube back in the day, a lot of it was just you uploaded SNL clips, or that's what people were doing, right? And that's what you watched on YouTube. He created a show called Wine Library TV, where he would sit and review wine. So he would put it down in front of him. He'd be like, but his real goal was to kind of democratize how people talked about wine in order to be authentic and sell it. So he'd be like, this tastes like Big League Chew mixed with dirt, mixed with raspberries or something like that. And he'd be like, oh, okay, I kind of know what that tastes like. And so YouTube got sold in 2006 to Google for $1 billion. And if you remember that transaction, it felt like $1 trillion. Like that, this was pre kind of a lot of things happening in the internet space. And Gary was reading an article about that transaction and read that a couple angel investors had put $25,000 checks into YouTube and were multimillionaires through that transaction. And so he Googled, like, what is an angel investor? And so he started at this point. He'd had a little bit of money saved up from the wine store's growth and wine library's growth. And he's like, all right, the next time I have this feeling, I was right about e-commerce. I was right about email. I was right about banner ads. I was right about search. Like the next time I'm right about a digital technology that's changing consumer behavior and has an impact on business, I'm going to invest in it. So his first 3 investments were into Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And then Uber was his 4th. So like the first 4 out of the first maybe 5, 10 made him rich. And so his brother graduated, his brother's 11 years younger and graduated college in 2009. And they talked about going into a business together because he was kind of came from a family business. And they launched VaynerMedia. VaynerMedia is a company that I started at 12 and a half years ago. I was employee number 25 up in New York. Now it's a full service advertising agency that works with the Fortune 500s of the world. So Pepsi and Procter & Gamble. So if you've seen Starry brand, all of the marketing that is done by Starry is done by VaynerMedia. And it's a global organization now. It's got offices in New York is where the headquarters, but we're in EMEA, we're in Asia, we're in Latin America. You know, it's a large scale organization now. And really what's driven that growth is we apply the learnings that Gary has driven through his family business, through the ventures that he's a part of as a serial entrepreneur, and apply those for our clients. And the big kind of, where our opportunity is that the majority of corporate clients and marketing is in an interesting spot because a lot of like the Procter & Gamble's and Pepsi's of the world still live and die by a television commercial. Most of their marketing is still driven, even in 2024. It's like as entrepreneurs and small businesses and like that's just wild to think about, right? But it's truly where a lot of the corporate dollars in marketing are still driven by TV. They make a campaign that is a 30-second video spot. It runs on broadcast linear TV, maybe a little bit of connected TV, OTT. And then somewhere down here, kind of social media is like, a lot of times the term in our industry is matching luggage, right? And so it's like, we'll get something that matches the television spot to run on social or things like that. We see that as a huge opportunity because we don't think that's how consumers actually behave these days. We think that this is the number one device in a consumer's life, and it has been for 15 years, right? I mean, the iPhone came out in 2007, and it's really started adopting with apps and things like that in the early, late 2000s, early 2010s, and this is where a consumer's attention is. The good news for y'all in the room and for what we've been doing over the past 12, 15 years is that this democratizes kind of how marketing can be done and creates a ton of opportunity where you don't need to have Pepsi and Procter & Gamble budgets anymore to have success and to drive success, right? So that's where a little bit where the Sasha Group comes in. We work with challenger brands in the mid-market and with full integrated services where we're kind of living and breathing on these platforms to drive business results. Can we go to the next slide? So you go back to the last one, sorry. This is all for us driven by the idea that the way brands are built today is through relevance. You can see this if anyone has teenage kids or younger, you'll know their favorite sports drink is a product called Prime. Prime is now outselling Gatorade at Walmart. And is really like a brand that's been around for 4 years. Logan Paul and a few other kind of influencers have launched it. But category sports drinks or Poppy in the soda space, you are having brands that are seemingly coming out of nowhere and really disrupting kind of what's available at the consumer level in places like Walmart and Target and grocery stores and things like that. And they're driven off of understanding that the way to build your brand today is by being relevant and capturing kind of consumer attention. That's the only way that like in order for your brands and businesses to grow, you can't play the same playbook that Pepsi or any of the incumbents kind of are playing these days. And the good news is they're still playing the old playbook, right? But this is changing. And so if you want to go to the next slide, The challenge with this is while it's democratized, it's also really difficult. And that's because the minute you start to think you learn Instagram, TikTok comes along. Or the minute you start to learn like different social media platforms, they change and they evolve, right? And so attention is like we have a lot of different things we're paying attention to right now. I think in general, everyone can say that like people's attention spans over time have gotten shorter as these devices have come around. The fact that your brand is kind of expected to be always on because there's always things that are happening as opportunities to gain relevance. And this process from a marketing perspective just moves a lot faster than it used to. If you want to go to the next slide. But how do you kind of build relevance is through, I keep using this device as kind of a representative of social media platforms, right? The TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, Twitter, down the line, right? Snapchat. And the difference with these platforms, what they want is to keep their users in the app. They want to keep you scrolling, keep you, because they're selling ads against you, right? And so they want to keep you engaged. And that means you're competing not just against other brands, you're competing against Taylor Swift. You're competing against like the cute kids of your friends and your family. You're competing against current events. So to grab someone's attention and get someone's attention is more difficult because you're not just competing against Pepsi and Coke. You're competing against kind of all these different publishers and content creators. And your brand and your business is being talked about online whether you realize it or not. Whether you're there contributing to that conversation or not, people are talking about their experience, they're reviewing things, they're sharing kind of whether it was good or bad. And so your brand is being built and discovered online. I read a stat, we have a stat that 40% of Gen Z prefer TikTok over Google for search. So when they're thinking about searching and discovering something, they're actually going to TikTok first and treating it like a search engine. Where they're going to go. And the result that shows up when you go to TikTok and search for something is very different than blue text or like a map image or some basic images that shows up, right? It's someone talking to you, giving a review, giving context on what's going on. And ultimately, the consumer decides what's quality, meaning these algorithms are going to reward creative that is engaging and that is actually relevant to people. And so it does not have to be shot with high production. It does not have to be a glossy, highly produced asset for it. It actually, like it oftentimes is better when it's more user-generated kind of content looking, when it's more authentic. That's where the type of content that succeeds on these platforms. Next slide. So when we talk about it with clients, we talk about you have to really adopt a new model. We talk about it as like the relevance model, which is it used to be that like in a boardroom, an advertising agency would get together with a client and we would make a decision on what type of advertising we wanted to run, right? Oftentimes this could take 6 months to a year to kind of develop what that would look like. It was boardroom down. Now we talk about like, and this is the models that most of our clients grew up in. And so we're having to also educate them on kind of what this means and how this creates different work for all of us, both client and agency. To consumer up, we often talk about the best way to succeed at social media is to make content that's hyper specific. So when you think about kind of traditional advertising, you're thinking like, oh, I've got to come up with my core persona of who that Jennifer is, who's 43 and has 2 kids and is overwhelmed and stressed. Like that's a very real persona, but it's almost it's not specific enough to easily create content against them. So if you can think about, okay, this is a rural mom that lives in Texas, 20 minutes to even get to a big box grocery store, let alone a high quality food grocery store, like you start to paint a little bit different picture if you're trying to sell food brands to her than just Jennifer, mom of 2. And we often talk about there's a saying that's been a long time around in the marketing world, which is brands can't be all things to all people. We disagree with that. We think you can be your goal as a brand is to make yourself as relevant as possible to as many people who could care as possible. And so that's just a really different shift and how you think about both coming up with creative, coming out with strategy on media placement, and how you would talk about your brand. The next slide. All of this we talk about with clients requires kind of a yes and mentality. It requires thinking about organic social. And so if Organic social, I'll spend a little bit of time on this because it's mostly free. All it costs is time, right? Like you can set up a TikTok account, you can set up an Instagram account, you can set up these different social media accounts for free, and you can start creating content. What's happened over the past, call it 4 to 5 years, is where organic social has become really interesting, especially for a group like this. And it's largely been driven by TikTok. TikTok kind of reshifted how social media platforms work. From, call it 2007 through 2019, Facebook was the large driver of kind of how social media platforms worked. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it was all based on you started following someone. It was it mapped our social graph. So you started following someone or an account, a publisher, whatever, and you would see their content in your feed. TikTok changed that where they care less about who you follow and it's more about interest. If anyone has a TikTok user or has played around with it at all, you'll come to find that its algorithm is actually really, really good at putting content that it thinks you're going to want to see based on signals that you've kind of given it. And so it's much more based around your interest. It's much more based around, okay, if I watch 3 different golf videos, you can, and I stop and engage and watch those videos, you can bet the next time I open up TikTok, it's going to be showing me more golf instructional videos or stand-up comedians or podcasters kind of clips and things like that. It will learn what you're interested in and serve that content based on that. What that has done, is it's created a really sticky engagement. I think TikTok has like a longer time spent than the other social media platforms, especially along its core users. Again, if you have teenagers, you probably understand that. But what it's done is that Instagram and Facebook have started to adopt that model with their Reels product, right? So the short form vertical video. And Reels get distributed far more outside kind of, and this is happening more and more with all types of content on Instagram and Facebook, but they're starting to be distributed outside of kind of just the people who you're following. What this means is that we kind of look at it as how good and relevant your creative is gives you an opportunity to earn distribution on these platforms. And so you can have an example where there are plenty accounts where people who had 100 followers on TikTok put out one piece of content and have now, and that got millions of views, and now they've become an account that a lot of people are starting to pay attention to. And their content is now being, if they continue to put out good, relevant content, it can grow and create that distribution. And so organic social is super interesting because it gives your brand an opportunity to reach a lot of people, really just at the cost of your time and your creative output, not based on if you're putting enough money behind it or if you spent enough money to kind of build up that following. Now, if you do have money and you are spending ads, this is where we also do that side of the business for our clients. We're running and planning their ad campaigns. And for us, it's all about thinking about what Gary would call underpriced attention. He's got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks. It's called Day Trading Attention. And he dives into, it's actually a really interesting book because it's going to be very of the moment. It's going to be like a textbook on how social media and how you can win with creative and media on these platforms. And so it's not going to be relevant in like 4 years because it's all going to be case studies from 2021 through 24. But I think it's also kind of an interesting concept as a book to have something that does just kind of sit in time. And so we often talk about like where are there opportunities from a media landscape perspective, and if you have an ad budget, and it could be $500, it could be $500,000, it could be $500 million, where would you first place that ad budget? And again, we would argue that you're going to get a better deal and a better price on those ads through these platforms. And ultimately, as I mentioned, the Sasha Group, we're actually named after Gary's father, Sasha, who was the original entrepreneur from that story I told at the beginning about who he is. And we work with growth stage companies, entrepreneurs, and then companies up into the mid-market. So we have consulting practices that we do for smaller size organizations. And then we work with kind of the Ferrero Rocher's, Old Smokies, Utz and Zapp's brands, Dr. Teal's, a lot of consumer brands that are, again, maybe more at that mid-market. So I think that's it. And then so just last slide is Sasha Group is we have about 100 people at the Sasha Group, 70 or so in New York. We've got 30 here in Chattanooga. VaynerX as an organization, there's 8 different marketing and different communications companies under the umbrella. VaynerMedia is the biggest, as I mentioned. It's a full global advertising agency, we have a production company, we have a speakers bureau, we have a publisher. There's about 2,000 employees across all of the 8 companies that Gary runs, and there's a couple things that he's doing outside of VaynerX as well. So with that background on kind of why we exist and what we talk to our clients about, and hopefully sharing a little bit around the world of social and digital, happy to take any Q&A or jam on any of these things I've talked on anymore. Yes, sir.
What's your best tip for a small business or local nonprofit to either start on social media or kind of grow their brand?
Yeah. The most important word in that question was start. I think just getting going can oftentimes be the biggest challenge, because you think, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, and you end up overthinking it. Or there's maybe something that you've got feelings of insecurity or judgment that like, hey, I don't want to be featured and I don't want my face to be on this. Well, it's your business. So like, you're already out there as a human. Think of your content on social media as just an extension of your reputation. Right? Everyone can understand like my reputation. That means something. That's all. If you're putting that hat on content, and it's, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to be known for? How can I bring value? Right? Relevance is driven by if you're giving value to someone through your content. So don't think of it really as advertising. Think of it as, how am I delivering education, entertainment, value to someone that's about my product, my service, or about things that are important in my target audience's life, in my audience's life. So start is the biggest thing. Think about how you can squeeze as much content out of your time as possible. And sometimes that's, hey, can I map an hour a day to be creating content? Sometimes that's not possible, right? Can I do 30 minutes? We talk about it like doing push-ups. You can read about doing push-ups all you want. The only way you're going to get better at push-ups is by doing push-ups. You're going to start at 10, and then you're going to do 15, and then you're going to do 20, and then you'll be doing 150 a day, like in 6 months, right? And so think of it that way. When you're on social media, when you're creating content, just get started. The more you do, the better at it you'll get. And how can you, and then I would probably start, like if you're looking for what's going to maximize my business opportunity, TikTok and Instagram are probably the top 2 that we think about in terms of what can give you outsized returns on that investment of your time. The good news also is that like these are inherently learnable platforms. It might seem not that way, but they actually have made it super easy to create content. So an example of that is like both TikTok and now Instagram and Facebook have this. They have a feature called green screen, right? It's literally where you just open up the app, you can put an image, a video, a link to an article behind you, and then just start talking about it. It's a really easy way of like, all right, here's news that's going on in my industry that could be important to my audience, and let me just give you my like color commentary on top of it of why it's important or what this means. That's a really easy way to educate your consumer. All that takes is you opening up that app, going to green screen, finding the article, and starting to talk about it. The other things that we talk about, like I'm trying to think of like the simple hacks kind of thing. This is specifically a TikTok tactic, but one that we are like pushing all of our clients really hard in on, is if you go and just look for content that is doing well. What's content that's getting a lot of views in your industry, and you start commenting on that content. We have some of our best, like we might have an account where if we get 10,000 views on an average piece of content, that feels good. That feels like baseline, right? Maybe we're getting 10,000, 5,000. When we get hundreds of thousands, we're like, okay, this popped. We made something that was relevant. What about this was relevant? That's where we start to dissect and build off of that. We can sometimes just go in as a brand, write a comment on a piece of content that's going somewhat viral, and get hundreds of thousands of engagements on that comment. And all you did was find that piece of content and leave a comment on it. It's an incredible way, kind of hack at getting attention across. And all it takes is again, time and effort. Yeah.
A lot of small businesses or individuals running their own business by themselves,
Yep.
like feel passionate about what it is that they do. They may be a counselor, they may be
Yep.
providing service, and they don't feel passionate about social media, but the social media is the key to reaching people. And I think there can be some fatigue with like having to spend so much
Yep.
So I'm intrigued to hear, like, if you think the engagement piece of, like, responding to everyone that engages on your social media is as valuable as just posting something, because I think that can be the rabbit hole that people fall down, is like constantly commenting and messaging, you know, like
Yep.
feeling like that's so vital and spending a lot of time there when they could be spending that developing their business, you know?
Yes. It's a challenge. It goes back to like, this is hard. This requires time and effort. It's also the cost of doing business. Like in some ways, there's really not like, you can choose not to do this. You're limiting your opportunity. So it's a matter of a cost benefit analysis and like certainly not saying burn yourself out over this. Like you're gonna have to find what your individual tolerance of this is. And yeah, if you don't go and reply to every single person that leaves a comment, is that going to torch the business? No. But it's still a good practice, especially if there's like a business opportunity within it. If someone comes and has a question about something, well, you can go and answer it. That's going to help them solve something. If it's a negative review, you can go and get their information, take that conversation offline, try to see how you can help them out, turn that around. We've had a lot of things that have someone leaves a negative comment online, and if you treat them like a human being on the other side of it, they'll back down pretty quickly. A lot of people have like social media muscles, but like the minute you start treating them with civility and like kindness back, like they'll change that too. And if they don't, you can block them and like, things like that. So, it does come down to like, how are you going to prioritize your time and where do you get your energy from? And I'm not to say like this is the only way you can ever build your business, but this is the way that a lot of businesses are being built right now, and there's opportunity to do it this way. If you have an accounting firm or something like that, and like, do you need to be on social media every single day? You could maybe argue with me that you don't. I would still say you're leaving opportunity on the table by not doing it. Yeah.
When looking both at the brands that you work with, but also with your social media goggles and knowing so much stuff.
Yeah.
When you're looking online, what's some of the biggest things that you fix right away where you're like, oh, you guys are doing this, instead we're going to do this as the first thing to change?
A lot of it is is posting more. It's posting more. So like we think that posting 2-3 times a week is enough. Is it? Like you're not squeezing as much out of it. So a lot of times it's going to come down to, can you create more content, and is that content relevant? So it's not just posting more for more's sake, but it's more for, am I learning something about my audience that, a lot of times we had, so Gary does this thing often where like if he's seeing something that's really working on his accounts, because he's got his personal brand that he's built, he's got like his family business, he's got other businesses that he run, he will immediately go and like, if it sees something that this is really working, he'll email the entire company and says, I expect every single one of the brands we work with have this type of piece of content live by the end of the day or within the next 48 hours, right? We have to move that quickly on these things. One of them recently was, it's an image post. It's got copy over top of it. There's 2 lines of copy. It says, what do you do? Just in your business or organization? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm part of Copyright.
Okay, so you're a creative agency. If you've ever worked, it's an image post on Instagram, right? So it's just a picture with copy written over top it, and it says, if you've ever worked in the creative agency, or if you're interested in working in the creative industry, ask a question. If you've ever worked in a creative agency, answer a question. And it's pointing people down to like ask and answer questions in the comments. I mean, super simple tactic, but like incredible reach and engagement off of that. But then also insights that you can say, hey, 11 people asked the same question as they've never worked in. That's a piece of content we can now make. Maybe that's a content series we can make where we're just going in and answering people like the most frequently asked questions that we get on our social media accounts. And so it's tactics like that where it's like, hey, this doesn't have to be, oh gosh, I have to think of something new to say. Gary, 8+ years ago, 9 years ago, started having someone on his team follow him around all day long and filming him. It's now turned into, he has, if you've ever followed him on Twitch, he just streams his office on mute all day long. So he has hundreds of people that just tune into Twitch and watch him work. 95% of the time, he's on mute because it's like meetings that are happening. You can't hear that stuff, right? It's confidential. But 5%, 1 to 5% of the day, he's engaging with people and things like that. This started, that's a little bit of a tangent, that just like that's a thing that's happening in Twitch now, as people are just live streaming their days. And like if you have a factory, that could be kind of interesting too, right? Or a manufacturing process, something like that. But he had someone follow him around because he was like, all right, this will be the way I scale my content creation. I'll just document everything, and then we'll post-produce that into the social media content that if you follow him online at all, you've probably gotten to see him over the years, which is like him throughout his day, like screaming at you or doing something, to deliver some sort of value. That type of content, though, isn't performing as well as like the ask a question, answer the question. Or sometimes it is, or sometimes it's a 2-swipe Instagram carousel where the first one is a meme and then the second one's the video you're actually trying to get people to like watch and pay attention, but it's the meme that kind of gets them in. The last thing I'll say to answer your question is, it's oftentimes people, if you ever talk to someone who worked at like Facebook or Google or things like that, they always tell you like, the first 3 seconds, you got to make sure your branding's in the first 3 seconds. You have a third of a second to get someone to stop scrolling their feed. So like, what's that hook that's going to get them to stop scrolling and pay attention to your piece of content? So oftentimes people just like, they treat it like a television commercial, and I'm out before I even had the chance to watch. Yes, sir.
Joshua Allen, JamSessions Productions again. How do you or suggest or keep yourself from becoming stressed out going down social media rabbit hole? And what are ways to not get overwhelmed?
Yeah. Perspective and gratitude. So perspective on like, this is not a medical emergency. Like this is just business, right? And so like it's your livelihood, sure, but it's not your health, or it's not like the people you love. And so it's not like you put it in that and like, okay, like we often talk about like no one ever died in a marketing emergency. Like no, like my dad's a surgeon, like I am not on that operating table, and you don't want me there. And so a little bit of it is like you've got to mentally put yourself in a position where when I'm working on this, it's important. And when I'm away from it, I'm not going to let it seep into me. You're going to count negativity and people that are angry online, because that's the way our world works these days. And we can get into a whole other different debates if you want to talk about that. But, just Gary often talks about the way to combat negativity online is to have empathy for that other person, because if they're spewing negativity online, they've got something that's inside that's like broken, that has made them think that like a good use of their time is to talk about you or talk about something else online and get into an argument online. And so it's like, well, if you, again, treat them with kindness and try to turn that around, and let's know yourself, like, right, what are your boundaries that hey, if I'm starting to feel burnout by this, well, let me examine that and see what I can do. One more question. I saw you first, sorry. I'll stick around too.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Yes, of course.
Maybe an interesting question, but like, what suggestions do you have for somebody that's wanting to start up like a small local like marketing agency?
Yeah, I mean the marketing agencies where it's a client service, right? That I would say it's about looking at. I mean, it's a lot of the things I've talked about today, but like where are there opportunities that you've had success with, that I always look at it as like, if the big marketers aren't paying attention to it, that could be a good opportunity for you, right? And so whether that's, hey, I've learned how to use AI for my workflow, could I go teach that to some other people, or could I go do that for some other people? Marketing agency, this also applies to almost kind of anything. If you think about yourself 5 years ago, what would you teach that version of yourself? Because there's probably a process or things that you've learned that would become valuable to others. And so I personally think that like a lot of organizations should build. We do social media for companies, and again, like Old Smoky's a 9-figure business, right? Like they can afford to outsource marketing. As a marketing agency, it might not just be like, hey, I'm going to go make this content for you, or I'm going to go plan your marketing for you. It's, can I teach you how to do this? Because I do think there's, especially at the early stages of a company, it's valuable to do this work, the social media, the content creation, not only because it's cost of doing business, like we talked about earlier, or it's how communication gets done. And storytelling is how like the world has always worked, right? Like stories are what drive us as humans. And so this is just the format of storytelling these days. I think teaching that company how to do this better, there's value for them in that like they can now judge the work better because they've now been educated. So I think there's so many different opportunities within this space, but focus on like, again, what would you teach yourself from 5 years ago, or what can you provide that you think bigger, maybe more traditional forms of media and thinking aren't addressing? Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, man. All right, guys, that's our time. Thanks so much for coming out. I just have a couple of announcements before you head out. First, just wanted to thank Walnut Street Publishing for providing our artists for this month, as they always do. Thanks, Walnut. And then our music is always chosen by Be The Change Collective, so thanks Be The Change for providing Luke Simmons. And then we've got some fun coffee break events coming up. So we actually have 2 coffee breaks in May, because we were like, why not do more, you know? So May 3rd, we were asked to be one of the final events for the Chattanooga Entrepreneurship Week. So yeah, it's exciting, yeah. So we're actually gonna be at TVFCU South Side on the 2nd floor. Same time, not the same place, obviously. It'll be there 8:30 to 10. It'll be the same setup, and we'll have people from TVFCU talking about the Idea Leap program. The winner of Idea Leap will be talking about their business, and then we're going to have someone from TVFCU's marketing team talk about their community involvement as an organization. And then May 10th, we have our regularly scheduled coffee break, which is the 2nd Friday, and that one's going to be super different. So Hive think we've been in Red Bank High School every week for like the last 18 weeks-ish, and so we've been teaching the students kind of about art and about business, and it's culminating into our May 10th coffee break. So the art students are setting up art booths to sell their own art stuff, so they'll be our featured artists, and then the business students are going to have like a Shark Tank competition, and you guys, the audience, are going to help us decide who wins. And so the Red Bank Council of the Chamber of Commerce is actually putting up money to sponsor some of the winners to get seed funding for their idea. And it's going to be an awesome time. The location is to be announced. We're still trying to figure that out. But as always, just follow us on Instagram at Coffee Break Chattanooga, or go to happycoffeebreak.com to see where it's going to be. And then the final event, so at the beginning of Chattanooga Entrepreneurship Week, we're doing a seminar on April 29th called Social Media for Entrepreneurs 101. So if any of the things that Mickey said seemed hard, come to this one. And then maybe this will make a little more sense then, because you'll have some of the basics under your belts. And then, let me see my list. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then if you live around Rossville, we're opening a new Be Caffeinated over there. It's exciting. And so it should open right after coffee break next month. So we hope to see you there, and we'll have details about grand openings and stuff. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being awesome, and see you next month. Bye, guys.